Good morning, nerds, and welcome to the second episode of the new series, Let's Play Something New. This series is built as a guide for both players who are wanting to venture into a system they're not familiar with, and for game masters who are looking for a guide to send to their new players at the table. These guides are built to produce a tabletop role playing game system to its nuts and bolts, and after watching the guides associated with each system, you, as a player, should have a completed character and just enough knowledge about core rules and gameplay to feel comfortable at the table. Now, the second episode now is Mech creation. If you didn't watch the first one about pilot creation, I definitely recommend hopping back to the first one real quick before getting to the Mech creation, just so you can kind of get a little used to how this game works. But of course, we're playing Salvage Union right now. If you watched the first episode, you know that we'll be covering Salvage Union by Leyline Press. And I love the system and how kind of relaxed its set of rules are, but also just how imaginative the art, the system, and the lore is. Again, I find it necessary to let you know that I am not sponsored or collaborating with anyone from Leyline Press, right? But ultimately, just to kind of go over a couple of things. Salvage Union is a gritty sci-fi mech fighter that prioritizes exploration and inventory management while allowing you to pretend you and your buddies are a bunch of rock'em sock'em robots killing mutant insects. This is video 2 in our series, which means that we'll be breaking into the mech workshop and designing our very own uh, mech robot. So let's jump into it. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to press this. This is our second episode, mech creation. Third one is union crawler creation, and then the fourth one will be basic rules and core gameplay. And like I said, watch that first one for pilot creation if you missed it. Now, step one, workshop manual breaks mech creation into another 8 easy steps. First of all is gaining your scrap. So, step one. When creating your first mech, you start off with 20 Tech 1 scrap pieces. Tech 1 assigns the value of the scrap we have, meaning that we can spend these 20 points on anything that is considered Tech 1, which will make sense as we kind of go forward. Any spare scrap that you don't use when creating your mech will be stored in your Union crawler. We'll cover the Union crawler later, but I do want to let you know that any spare scrap kind of goes into a group stack. So any of your other players at the table who don't use all their scrap, it all goes into a collective bucket towards the end. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be sharing, but but anything that you use kind of gets put onto the table for the rest of the team here, and that's step one. So step one really wasn't a step one at all, which means step two is where the fun begins because this is probably, in my opinion, the most exciting of the whole process: picking your mech chassis. Now, the mech chassis is going to be the foundation of what you kind of build your mech on, and each chassis comes with its own kind of quirks and features, if you will. If I dug the mirror it up, each one has its quirks and features. These are the five mechs that are considered Tech One chassis, and these five mechs really cover a wide range of play styles, ranging from flying to bipedal and multi-legged options. Now, just kind of if I'm going to go surface level here, if you choose the mule, if you like a simple mech with a bit more storage than the rest of the options. Choose the Mizona if legs just aren't your style. With a hovering drone, you can traverse different types of terrain with ease. Choose the Scrapper if you're looking for a mech that can withstand the worst environments, and you'll still get the job done. Choose the Spectrum if you enjoy filling out your personal encyclopedia. You can identify any and all objects in the world and even scan mech parts for your teammates to use later. And then also you can use the Thresher, which you're looking for something battle ready. This is it. Really, its special ability, just to kind of get into it, is that enemies can't critical against you, which means that well, pretty much you can fight for longer. And so, since I'm going with since I'm going with my scout pilot that I created in the last episode, I kind of want to go Spectrum. Something about that design, just, about it like a walking server, really appeals to me. So I'm going to take it over to my my mech creation sheet here. This is the top half of the mech creation sheet. I'm going to write down Spectrum under here underneath the chassis. Um, and I can also fill in a little bit of details about the chassis ability in the ability section. Data scanner. This allows me to scan any sort of animal, plant, being, material, anything that I want, and the GM, the game mediator, has to provide me with two correct answers for whatever I scan. I also have the ability to scan intact module, system, or mech pieces and turn into a blueprint that can then be used by my team to build offsite or in the union crawler, which I think would be really, really helpful if I'm trying to be that kind of man in the chair type business. So, step three now, which honestly, this kind of feels like it's a step two type of situation, but the 8 steps makes it easy, and so we'll keep it in a second place. We're going to note down all of our mech's statistics. Now, if you look into the workshop manual underneath the badass image of your of your mech, if we're being real, you'll have a various kind of numbers you'll have to jot down. This is going to be as follows, really. Your structure points. This is going to be your max HP in the mech. Okay, structure points is your mech's HP. Your energy points, which are similar to your pilot's ability points. This is what is going to power your modules and systems when you're trying to use abilities. Your heat cap. This is the maximum amount of heat that your mech can sustain before each action you make has dire consequences. Now, I'm going to go into more detail on this on the fourth episode when we go over core gameplay and mechanics. But every time that you roll a dice, of course, you roll the 1d20 to resolve your action. If you don't like the outcome, you can choose to roll again, but it adds heat to your mech. So I can do that 3 times before I start kind of running into issues. Which I mean, my mech is built like a refrigerator. I really doubt that I can handle that much heat. Um, Next is going to be the maximum systems and module slots. It's going to be the maximum amount of things that I can add to my mech, along with my cargo space, which is going to be just the stuff that I can carry in my cargo space. My tech level 1 chassis is where I put it here. I'm going to put a 1 there. And then, of course, the salvage value is 10. Now, if we're harkening back to step 1, where I only have 20 scrap, the salvage value is actually going to be the cost in scrap pieces. And so I've banked half of my budget just in the chassis. And so we're gonna have to pinch pennies a little better when we're going through the modules and systems here. And since I have all this done, I can go ahead and fill out my current section on the right hand side. So I'm just gonna type in. I'm just gonna put in my what my current energy points and structure points are at, and my heat is at 0. So step 4, crafting our systems. The workshop manual. This is pretty much where we're going to be finding out what systems we want to add to our mech here. And there are plenty of systems to choose from, even in the Tech 1 class. So ultimately, each system cost is going to be its salvage value in the Tech 1 scrap. And since my chassis has a hefty price of 10 scrap points, I only have 10 points to spend. And not to mention that some of these systems are actually recommended, these being your locomotion system and your escape hatch. Um, so now, initially, you might think it's kind of odd that you have to actually spend points on a locomotion system and an escape hatch, but that's because these things can break or be targeted by enemy mechs. So yeah, your locomotion system can break and render you pretty much just in a sitting coffin. On the bright side, though, these are systems that you can also target and break on enemy mechs. So have a heyday. So I'm actually going to take a look. I have a couple in mind here. If you weren't looking at the list back there, I don't blame you. But first, I'm going to get the escape hatch. Having as much as I'd like to Warhammer 40k this mech and just get welded into my freaking mech, I think an exit sounds pretty nice. And I will write that name of the system at the top and the level of the tech it is, CT1, the number of slots required in the triangle, which is 2, and then the amount of scrap it costs in that little gear icon, which is 1. The second system I'm going to buy is, of course, the locomotion system, so I can move. I'll write it here, then the tech level, slot count, and scrap cost. I'm going to be as a scout, as someone who's trying to sneak around. I probably will be scuffling around in the dark often enough that some floodlights would be useful. So I'm actually going to add those here. And what's the point of having a mech if I don't have a gun attached to it? So I'm going to get a 50 cal machine gun and write that here as well. So, with this current loadout, I have used all 7 system slots and spent a total of 6 scrap, meaning that I have only 4 scrap to spend on modules, which is kind of crazy. Which brings us to step 5, filling out our modules here. Now, similar to the systems, there are going to be some recommended modules, and I'd like to think of the systems as things that are on the outside of your mech, but modules as being things on the inside of your mech. So let's pick a couple out. Yeah, some modules highly encouraged. That being the comms unit, the comms module. The only recommended module in Tech 1 is the comms module, and that's because the only way you can talk to fellow pilots and mechs while inside your mech is through the comms module. And so it's important that you have it. And since my mech is and so I'll write that here. I got the comms module and as well as the um, T1, 1, and 1 in that spot. And since my mech is a walking server, I probably have a lot of important files on board, which means I need a firewall. So I'm actually going to build a firewall. This makes me resistant to, it gives me abilities that make me resistant to hacking attacks. Um, and so that's a T1 here and a 1 in the slots and a 2 the scrap. Means I have one more scrap point. And I think I'm going to throw it into an equipment's locker, which allows me to have kind of things um, while I'm in the cockpit. I can switch out my inventory with kind of a storage unit there. And you're just going to trust me on this. I've run out of spots on this page. I have to go to the next page here. You have to trust me that I put the equipment's locker in there. But I have spent a total of 3 of my 4 module slots and I am bum out on all of my scraps. So my rig is all decked out. So I've got my mech, I've got my modules, I've got my systems. Now it's time for a little bit of flavor. So I get to choose my quirk. And ask any tech genius, and they'll tell you that electronics have personalities, and a mech is no different. What you're going to want to do here is add some personalization to your mech with a quirk or a feature. Oh man, I forgot to change. Oh no, don't know that I scrapped the that I copy and pasted the slideshow. Don't roll on the model table, roll on the quirk table. And so that is going to be here, and I'm actually going to grab my pink die here. And I immediately regret rolling this. I was really hoping I wouldn't get one. I don't want flashing RGB lights, but I think I got something much worse. I rolled a 5, which means that I will be adding to my my mech character sheet inexplicably always sticky, which is something I thought I would never add to any sort of character sheet. But sadly, it sits here. Now, we get to describe our mech's appearance, which is amazing. We get add a little flavor here. And how much you want to bet I didn't change the. Oh, no, on the appearance table. So, yes, there is a table for the appearance, or of course, you can make your own mech. Me, as a game mediator, I really wouldn't care if you had your own idea for the appearance. You don't have to roll on this table. But um, hoping for something better than a sticky mech. I'm going to roll on this as well. So let's get my dice and I'll roll. And I got a 14, which is interesting because I feel like my mech's theme is slipping away from me for a little bit. So I'm going to take it back to my character sheet and I'm going to add in the appearance overgrown with plants and vines. Which maybe will come in handy later. Maybe like my mech has like really good camouflage. Um, so good that plants are growing on it. So I'm inexplicably sticky and overgrown with plants and vines. But you know what? That's it. We're going to step 8, giving our mech a name. And the naming convention for your mech is not typical, and so I'm going to show you how it's done. Um, Giving your mech a name is quite interesting because what you do is you actually think of a unique pattern name, and this unique pattern name is kind of like the theme or the purpose or like the specialization of your mech. You can see some examples of this in the workshop manual, like the Mule's Hauler pattern, or the Mazona's Scrap Flinger pattern, or the Thresher's Butcher pattern. And so you come up with an interesting name that kind of encapsulates the main purpose of your mech, and then you add the word pattern, and then you add the word mech chassis. So, and just as a side note, if you've gotten through this part and you thought, wow, designing my whole entire mech is a little bit frustrating, or I can't think of the right thing to do, or it's just a little bit too much thinking. If you look at each of the Tech One chassis in the book, there are a couple of preset patterns. One of which is a legal, what they consider a legal pattern for a first mech. It's within the point range, it's within the slot range, and you can just pick one of those to go if you don't want to necessarily choose your own. Um, scrap Going back to the subject at hand now. um, Here, of course, you have a table though. If you want to roll in the patterns name table, there's a couple of very interesting names here, which I'm going to be rolling for one of them. And so I have plenty of ideas for a slightly sticky plant-ridden hard drive on legs, but I'm still going to roll on this table just because I feel like it's in character at this point. And I rolled a 17, which means my mech's name is the Diva Pattern Spectrum. Oh, let's head back over the character sheet. And in the in the pattern section, I'm going to put the pattern name Diva. So I got a Diva pattern spectrum that is inexplicably always sticky and overgrown with plants and vines. But uh, um, It's not, this half of this half of the character sheet is not what I was expecting, but I am willing to run with it because I love my mech and I'm excited to take it for a ride. But that's the mech creation. We have an entire mech, and I have plenty of modules and systems at my disposal. And I'm super excited to hop into the cockpit and fire this thing up for the very first time. And I hope that this step-by-step guide provided some clarity when creating a mech for Salvage Union. And I'm hoping it continues a little more excited about the game. Now, if you want to play Salvage Union, but don't have a game mediator to facilitate the game, check out my profile on Start Playing Games, where I run a couple of Salvage Union games. The link will be in the description of this video. And make sure to tune into Tethered by the Table's live streams to watch our long-running campaign on Twitch. Um, at the moment, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we're absolutely loving it. And I'll see you next episode, where we'll explore the Union Crawler and how it's essentially your base of operations. It's super cool stuff, and I can't wait to see you there.